Hey, what's up, people? So, this is me. This is T is True. This is my YouTube channel. I'm going to start making videos here and recording here um, to just talk about, various things that I'm passionate about, various topics that's on my mind. And I see a lot of people using YouTube and video blogging. I'm trying to get a feel for this and see what I can do. Um, but it should be an interesting way to just kind of connect with some people and talk about things that's on my mind that I'm passionate about. And people that know me know that I'm going to mostly focus, and my passion is mainly in games. So I don't want to call this a video gaming channel necessarily. It's my channel, but I'm probably gonna spend a lot of time and put a lot of videos up talking about the game industry and various topics on gaming. It should be a very interesting time. We're in a 2013 is going to be a very big year for games. PS4, Xbox One coming out, and they're going head to head for the first time ever. We've never had two systems, big systems that were released in the same year, in the same month probably. And they're just going to go head to head, and it's going to be really close. I mean, E3 2013 just happened. I wasn't able to go because E3 occurred the same week I got married this year. So um, E3 wedding, I chose the wedding, but I did make it to E3 last year. So hopefully next year, but I did catch up on everything, so all the videos, and it's gonna be really close. I mean, those two systems, they each have their pros and cons, and we'll talk about that. There's a lot there to talk about. Looking at the future, we'll talk about that. Um, but I just wanted to, kind of create an intro video, kind of lay down the groundwork for my perspective and my attitude and my background, so to speak, in games. I'll kind of just talk about my history with games and and gaming, and kind of what this industry means to me and why I'm passionate about it. And any future video I make or talk about after this, just to kind of just be the groundwork of my stance and my perspective and just where I'm coming from. So I figure I'll lay that out now. So my history in games. Well, the first game system that I ever owned was actually a Sega Master System. That was back in like 1985, I think. So I'm 30 years old now, and yes, the Sega Master System I was about 4 years old, and that was my first time really playing a game, and I was hooked ever since. um, and yeah, it wasn't just about playing the game. I mean, ultimately, I work in games now, and my whole career, my whole life, basically, I was driven to try to getting to gaming. Do something revolving around gaming. It's just something I've been passionate about. So that was the start, man. I just remember like just seeing that and playing games at such an early age, and just not just playing them, right, but just saying, man, how did this work? This is so cool. I want to know how this can happen. You can have these transitive experiences, right? I mean, you can be playing, double dribble back in the day, a basketball game, and while you're playing that game, you're a basketball player or you're a coach, or what I mean, like, I mean, you can have these experiences through a computer. It just was amazing to me. So it's like I got to do this. Is what I got to do. So I started there, Sega Master System. Most people probably don't even know what the Sega Master System is or was. Sega Master System was actually Sega's second system, I believe. It wasn't technically their first. It was a system that they came out with, their 8-bit system, that actually came out before the Nintendo did, right? This is before Genesis and everything. So I remember they had a bunch of like Rambo games from the movies. A couple that had like a space shooter game. I can't remember a lot, but I enjoyed it. It was cool. After that, of course, I got an NES. I mean, everyone had to get an NES at the time, Mario and so forth. So had an NES. After that, I got a Genesis, and Genesis was the cool thing. And honestly, for me, Genesis was my favorite system, one of my favorite systems to this day of all time. It definitely was my most enjoyable system at up to that point. Um, I prefer the Genesis over the Super Nintendo. It was something about Sega's style of games and the Genesis type of games. Streets of Rage, I mean, just great game. Golden Axe, um, those arcade style, beat 'em up style. I just enjoyed them. I really just liked them. Sonic, of course. So I really did enjoy my Dreamcast. I mean my Genesis. Sorry. I did eventually get a Super Nintendo as well, and I enjoyed it. But like I said, I was a Genesis person first. So the next system I got, and then it gets pretty interesting, was actually a Panasonic 3DO. After Super Nintendo in about 1994, I got this system called 3DO. And 3DO, most people probably don't know what that was, right? 3DO was a, it was billed at being like this revolutionary, futuristic, super powerful gaming system. Uh, it was basically just one of the first gaming systems that actually used CD-ROM for games. And what that meant was you had a lot of extra storage, so they can actually store and play like full motion video, right? Like movie files. That's what it meant, digital movies. So while you're playing the game, the game is like looks like a movie, right? It looks like video that you would see when you played in a VCR or something, right? A VHS at the time, right? That was big, right? Coming from Nintendo and Super Nintendo, the idea of like, again, basically playing a movie was pretty cool at the time, it felt good being at the cutting edge. Um, I remember initially, I'm dating myself, I know, but initially, I heard about 3DO in a GamePro magazine ad for Road Rash. It was like they're showing this game Road Rash, and they were like, only on or coming soon to 3DO. And I was like, whoa, what's 3DO? I gotta have that. Like, what's that? Um, and I didn't think I would get it. For some of you guys that may remember, the 3DO initially came out at $700, which was just ridiculous at that time. Um, by the time I got it, it went down to $399. It still was crazy expensive though. But I asked for it for Christmas from my family who loves me so much. And I didn't think I would get it, but they got it for me. And it was cool. It was great. I loved it. Like I said, it felt futuristic. And I don't know, it was cool. I remember playing Road Rash, great game. Music was great. They had music videos in it. It was just cool. And then Demolition Man, they made a Demolition Man game that was basically like playing the movie. I mean, they literally had movie clips from the film playing throughout the game, and you played as Sylvester Stallone character. It was trippy, but it was funny, but it was cool. I really enjoyed it. And Captain Quasar and Gex, and I mean, these are just some of the games that you probably don't know, but were out for this system, and I really enjoyed it. Then I started hearing about the PlayStation One, original PlayStation. Sony is getting into gaming, and I'm like, okay, I was pretty, thrown off by that. Sony, right? Electronics makers of the Walkman are about to make a gaming system. Like I didn't buy into it. But initially, it bothered me because a lot of their early games that they were talking about were a lot of the games that were already on the 3DO. Games like Gex and Road Rash, they basically ported over and redid them, and it ran a little smoother, but it was the same game, and they hyped them up like, hey, here's a new experience. I'm like, really? We already are playing that. Fact of the matter is, 3DO was just too expensive. It wasn't marketed well, or if at all. Almost no one bought it. Developers, flocked away from it. Barely had any developer support. Although EA actually was one of the biggest supporters of that, because one of the people that actually founded EA was one of the guys that actually created the 3DO system. So, the very first Need for Speed game debuted on 3DO. Fun fact for you guys if you didn't know that. And there was a lot of EA games. I remember there was a game Shockwave on there that I liked. Madden Football was on there, stuff like that. So it had some support, but by that point, within a year, actually, EA was already kind of moving on, and everyone was flocking to Sony and the PlayStation. So it was like, I mean, they're just copying and kind of doing a Me Too. Like, yeah, we have a lot of that stuff. I was too young and too naive to really understand the industry, right? To understand that, hey, um, these games, the developers are not going to make games for this platform, right? The writing is on the wall, it's too expensive, it's too this, blah, blah, blah. It's not really going to have the support. So if I want to maintain my hobby, I have to kind of go where the games go, because that's what I've always been about. So, of course, eventually I did move to PlayStation, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. The first game I remember seeing for PlayStation where I was like, you know what, like seriously, like I gotta have this, was Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII was just unbelievable. I remember the first time I saw that. I was in high school and I went to one of my friends' rooms. Unbelievable. I mean, I just remember it. I was like, I gotta have this game. I gotta have this system. I never even played Final Fantasy before that. I didn't play 1 through 6. I wasn't like a Japanese RPG person, but that was the truth. I was like, I gotta have this. So I went ahead and got that, and Final Fantasy VII and Crash Bandicoots and Metal Gear Solid. I mean, the first Metal Gear Solid game. Oh my god. I mean, one of those experiences that I just will never forget. I remember literally playing the game and having chills. Like literally, I'm not saying this specific. I mean, like seriously, I was like had chills. Like this game was just so cool. I just that was a great game. Um, but yeah, PlayStation, wound up doing okay, and Sony obviously, established himself. Gran Turismo, that those kind of games had all that. So didn't get a Saturn. Sega Saturn to me, like I said, I love Genesis. I was a big Sega person. I love their arcade games, all this kind of stuff. But Saturn just didn't have a lot of the games. It wasn't marketed well. It was more expensive. I just know better. N64, same thing. I just felt like it had a lot of limitations. I didn't like cartridges. I had already had two systems, 3DO and PlayStation, that used CDs. So I didn't like the idea of cartridges. I played a lot of the games. I remember the first time I saw Super Mario 64, it was just like, wow. I mean, again, that was like this 3D, it was cool. It was crazy. But I love games, man, and I play all type of games. But I don't have an infinite amount of money. So I don't go and just buy everything like some people or a lot of really, really hardcore gamers. I put my money where, I feel like the games that I'm going to get a return on my investment, would make sense. And there just wasn't enough content on Saturn and N64 to appeal to me. So I didn't go there, right? But yeah, after PlayStation, my next system was the Sega Dreamcast, which I loved. People that know me, if anyone that knows me winds up seeing this video, in high school, I was all about the Dreamcast. I wrote papers on the Dreamcast for no reason, on my own, like in my spare time. Technical papers, talking about the system. I literally advertised for Sega. I mean, I literally walked around telling everybody about the Dreamcast. When the Dreamcast came out, I took the system and put it in the main student center in my school and just kind of had like a demo or show session so people can see it. The problem was that a lot of people were just, at that point, Sony was actually ruling the gaming world. PlayStation 1 was taking off, and then we start hearing and seeing rumblings about PlayStation 2. They looked crazy, emotion engine, and everyone just like, oh my god, PlayStation 2 is going to set the world on fire, and Sony is this and that. And no one really was paying attention to Dreamcast. And I just thought that was a travesty. So, my mind, I was just trying to like get it out there. Hey, Dreamcast is this thing that is out there already. It has these great games. It has these great graphics. Just at least, see it, pay attention to it. That was really where I was coming from. I mean, Dreamcast was just, it was my favorite system up to that point, by far. I still have my Dreamcast. I don't play it, but I just refuse to get rid of it. I have it like in a box somewhere. But, man, Sonic Adventure, Soul Calibur, Ready to Rumble, Power Stone 1 and 2. I mean, I love, again, it was like the best system for Sega arcade style games, instantly fun games. To me, Dreamcast was really the first system where we really got a chance to get a feel for what 3D graphics was about. People say that PlayStation kind of introduced the consumer market to 3D graphics, and I think Dreamcast did. I mean, the 3D graphics at PlayStation 1 was still so primitive. It was polygons there. The texture mapping quality was not great, and the polygons were so few. N64 did much better with the texture mapping. But I think Dreamcast was the first time where, you could see really smooth models and detailed models and great animation and colors. And, I mean, it was the image quality in the Dreamcast was just still, to this day, one of the best systems for that. Cool. Just a great system. Didn't last long, didn't live long. The hype and the Sony machine basically killed it off before it could really get going. And I thought that was a travesty, honestly. I was really upset. Again, I wasn't really big on Sony. I felt like they were just kind of doing a lot of this and spewing all of this numbers that anyone that really knew better was like, really? I mean, this is not very practical, right? But they were able to talk the talk, right? I mean, they were able to spit a good game, and it worked. They really were able to spit a good game. So people flocked to Sony. It wound up killing Sega and killing Dreamcast, right? Making Sega only a software company. But eventually I got a PlayStation 2. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of great games on PlayStation 2. It wasn't my favorite system or anything like that. But, I enjoyed it. It had some good games on there. I used it as a DVD player like a lot of people did, of course. So I thought that was cool. And PlayStation 2, I didn't get an Xbox. I just didn't feel like there were any games to appeal to me on Xbox. GameCube, same thing. So from that point on, I pretty much was a PlayStation person. I did get an Xbox 360. I actually waited out in the rain the morning of work day, for 4 hours to get an Xbox 360 at launch and wind up not getting it there. Then I wound up buying it on eBay for $300 more than the asking price. So anyone want to try to call me a fanboy, there you go. You see my history. I've spanned various games, right? So all types of systems, Sega, Nintendo, Sony, I've been around. And I've done a lot. Like I said, I waited, got soaked, went to work late, paid $300 extra for Xbox 360 because I'm a gamer. It was, a year before the PS3. Even though I knew in my heart that I wanted a PS3, from the first time I heard it, it just appealed to me better. It was the more technically advanced system. I'm a tech guy, right? It had better home theater qualities. It had support for everything, man. It was just crazy. It had support for everything, all kinds of sound formats, 1080p video capability, all of this technical stuff, right? And I just was like, Xbox at the time, DVD drive versus Blu-ray drive, no HDMI out initially. I mean, Microsoft wasn't thinking about their hardware in a futuristic way, and Sony was, and that appeals to someone like me. I got nice home theater, big speakers and nice system. I want to be immersed in my experience, so that's what I felt PlayStation 3 was going to bring. But it was late, and the software was kind of messed up and stuff. And my first time of being able to play a game in HD in my living room was on Xbox. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna get an Xbox. If it happens to grab me and I love it, who knows? I may keep it. But my intention in my mind was that I probably was going to eventually sell it in that next year to get the PlayStation 3, which I wound up doing. I enjoyed the Xbox when I had it. I thought my experience with Xbox 360 was one of the best launch experiences I had in terms of getting a system right away and then feeling like, whoa, this is next gen. This is something bigger and different. I had that feeling with Dreamcast as well. I had that feeling with 3DO back in the day, right? But this was it as well, when I was an adult to really appreciate it, right? HD graphics, and I mean, just games like Oblivion, I remember I was just like, oh my God, this game is just, the graphics are crazy, the technical is crazy, the open world is huge. Ghost Recon, I remember the lighting in that game and just like the, this technical stuff, like the eye thing that you had, the second screen and picture in picture. It was cool. It was great. Dead Rising, the first one, I really enjoyed. Gears of War 1 was obviously a blockbuster game at the time. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my Xbox One and Xbox 360, and that's cool. But again, I felt like PlayStation 3 was going to be the better system for me. I solely got a PS3, and that's what I've been rolling with for the last 7 years, basically, right? So, I don't have an Xbox. I had a Wii, but I kind of gave it to my nieces. So I still played, the games. I'm a gamer, like I said. That's my groundwork, right? I'm not a fanboy, so whatever I talk about in the future, I'm coming from a PlayStation 3. I'm coming from being on Sony's side, so to speak, right? I'm most familiar with Sony, but I'm not a Sony loyalist. Like I said, before PS3, I never really was a big proponent of PlayStation systems, honestly. Didn't feel like there was anything real special about them, but I did think that ultimately Sony made the best, most varied, and in my opinion, most innovative games in this generation for PS3. You think about games like Journey and Flow and Little Big Planet and Infamous and Uncharted. I mean, you're not getting those experiences on Xbox or Nintendo, right? I mean, I think at this point it's established and over the 7-year history that Sony's games this generation have been really great. They haven't sold the way they should have, but they were critically acclaimed. They were really good games. So that's where I was. And, I appreciate that. So looking forward, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at PS4 with a close eye just because that's, I'm most familiar with them. I have my trophies and my username and all this stuff. But, gamers are games, so we'll see what Xbox can do. I did try to play the biggest games of this generation, the Assassin's Creed. I made sure I tried to play that. Mass Effect, try to play that. Like I said, I played Gears of War, obviously play the Sony stuff. There's some games that are going to be remembered in this generation, like those games, Mass Effect and Bioshock. I played Bioshock 1, played Bioshock Infinite. I have a gaming PC as well. So a lot of these games, if it's not on PlayStation, most of the time it's on a PC or something. So I'm still able to play a lot of them, and Portal and stuff like that. I mean, it's cool. I'm everywhere, but when it comes to console market, yeah, I do think that Sony had the best message that appealed to me this generation, which was it's all about the games, and I thought they delivered in that. So going forth, that's the groundwork. You know, like I said, I've been around Sega, Nintendo, Sony. I'm a gamer. I love it. I work in it now, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'll put up more videos going into some other topics, but that's the intro. That's the first video. Signing off. Talk to y'all later.